My brothers and sisters and my beloved confreres, a very hearty welcome to each one of you to the second Sunday after Christmas, known as the Epiphany Sunday. We are celebrating today the wisdom of the three wise men to recognize Jesus as the one meant for our salvation. We have the Gospel passage from the Gospel of Matthew today, known as one of the Synoptic Gospels. The Gospels of Mark, Matthew, and Luke are known to be Synoptic Gospels. But sometimes we find, even in these Synoptic Gospels, a particular evangelist holds a particular view which is not mentioned in the other Gospels. For example, when the narration of the birth of Christ comes in, Luke the evangelist would elaborately speak about the shepherds, the manger, and the angels. But Matthew mentions more about what happens after the birth of Christ. The Magi comes into the scene, the flight into Egypt, and the return to Nazareth are very specific to Matthew alone. Of course, Matthew and Luke mention that Jesus was born in Bethlehem. He grew up in Nazareth. Today, when we are speaking about the visit of these Magi, we are specifically referring to the Gospel of Matthew because it's only there we find this narration. The Magi, the wise men, come to meet Jesus. Who are these wise men? From the historical point of view, it is said they might have been belonging to the priestly class emerging from Persia, a kind of sorcerers or the so-called people of wisdom. They come from the other side of the world, which had in fact nothing to do with the Jewish traditions. Today's Arabia could be considered to be that country from where these wise men come. It shows forth the universality of the redemption that Jesus the Lord is bringing into this world. In order to recognize this universality, one should be wise enough. There's a beautiful incident mentioned in the life of Nikos Kazantzakis. His father was owning a vineyard in a remote island, and the harvesting time was during the summer. People naturally expected at that time no rain to come so that the harvest would be safe. But in that particular year, it happened so, as the time of the harvest came near, on a particular evening, the clouds gathered together, and it looked as though it is going to heavily rain. People prayed to God, please save our cultivation. But unfortunately for them, it rained incessantly for hours long, and the whole harvest was destroyed and was taken away by the flood. The young Nikos ran to see what his father is doing at the place of cultivation. As he reached his father, he saw him standing in water up to his waist. In all sadness, Nikos Kazantzakis asked his father, "Father, all our work is gone waste." And his father told him, "Keep quiet. We are still here. Keep quiet. We are still here." I believe this is the wisdom. Wisdom always stands apart from cleverness. Wisdom sees beyond the subjective interests. Cleverness is connected with shrewdness for one's own advantage, whereas wisdom is meant for universal good. We are here. Our God is here, irrespective of the place from where you emerge, irrespective of the language or the caste or the creed to which you belong, irrespective of the faith that you profess. God is here universally. Jesus Christ, the Redeemer. and the Magi recognizes that wisdom. Yes, my brothers and my sisters, for the Jewish Christians of that time who were very badly persecuted by the Jews, it was very necessary to see in Jesus a Messiah who would save them. And the Gospels as well as the whole Bible mentions about that. If you read the book of Micah, in the chapter 5, it is clearly mentioned that the Messiah would emerge from Bethlehem. Luke the evangelist would call Bethlehem as the town of David the king. Matthew the evangelist today speaks about Bethlehem in the town of Judea. And that is precisely what we see the wisdom. Jesus Christ emerges from the simplest possible townships where universality of redemption is clearly mentioned. You have nothing to be subjective about it. You must see beyond. The one who failed to see that wisdom was Herod the king. At the time of Jesus' birth, Herod the king was the king of Israel. And naturally, he was a man who was in charge of the whole citizens and the township. He ruled from BC 37 to BC 4. And it is said that in the last part of his reign, he was the most aggressive and cruel king. He killed 3 of his own sons. And he was ready to kill Jesus when he understood a new king is emerging. Although it had nothing to do with his kingdom and kingship, he was afraid that someone would emerge who would destruct the peace of the place. Yes, my brothers and sisters, it is here that we need to differentiate between wisdom and cleverness. A man who is afraid, irrespective of the fact that it has nothing to do with his life, still hoping that there should not be anyone above me. Possibly, this is the greatest tragedy that we find in our time too. Recognizing the person of Christ without having any kind of fear or anxiety is the responsibility of every Christian. You know, it is equal to saying, when we in our country elect a prime minister, at the time of the election, he may be belonging to a particular religion. He may be belonging to a particular party. But once he is elected as the prime minister of our country, he is our prime minister. He grows beyond his religion, beyond his party. He becomes a prime minister for every citizen of the country. So it is also in the case of Jesus. Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God, came into this world in order to redeem the humanity and not people belonging to a particular caste or creed. He is the King of everyone. That is where we see these wise men coming with a sense of purpose. Later, they were even depicted to be kings. It may be because of some references that we find in the book of Psalms or in the book of Prophet Isaiah. Whatever it be, their names even are considered to be Melchias, Caspar, and Balthasar. And the gifts they bring along are symbols meant for a king. Today, through the visit of the Magi, we are reminded of the necessity to accept Jesus Christ as the universal King, whom people of every variety worshipped and adored. Remember, the Magi came not to meet Jesus. The Gospel of Matthew very clearly says the Magi came to worship him. Have you recognized the kingship of Jesus, and are you ready today to worship him as your Lord and Master? Amen.